Emily Carr was a pioneering spirit, one of the first women to carve a lasting place in the story of Canadian art. Though not formally associated with the Group of Seven, as Thomson was, her contributions to Canadian art were deeply significant. Thomson, a contemporary of Carr's, profoundly affected the circle of artists who would later form the Group of Seven. His adventurous spirit and daring approach to painting the northern wilderness pushed many of them in bold new directions. Yet his untimely death meant he was never able to join the group when it was officially founded in 1920. In contrast, Carr first encountered the Group of Seven in 1927 at the age of 57, by which time she had already established her own artistic voice. A strong and immediate connection formed between them, rooted in their shared passion for the Canadian landscape and their desire to express its power and beauty through art. Emily Carr was born and raised in the rugged beauty of British Columbia, where her English parents had settled in 1863. Victoria, one of the earliest cities in the Pacific Northwest, had been established as a British outpost in 1843. Incorporated in 1862, it became the provincial capital when British Columbia entered Confederation in 1871. From an early age, Emily's father, Richard Carr, recognized her artistic talent and encouraged her to pursue drawing lessons. Moreover, when he returned from business trips, he would captivate young Emily with vivid tales of the wilderness. The immense trees standing in a silence all their own. Eagles dusky and rust-colored, their white heads bright against the heavens. Quiet owls floating through the shadows like spirits of the woods. These images, planted in her childhood, became memories Emily carried for life. Richard Carr played a decisive role in shaping Emily's spirit. He nurtured her imagination and drive, yet his stern, authoritarian manner also left her with a deep sense of isolation and a streak of rebellion, qualities that remained part of her character for many years to come. In 1891, at the age of 20, Emily Carr left Victoria to continue her artistic education at the California School of Design in San Francisco, where she studied for 3 years. The school reflected the city's growing cultural reputation, offering instruction modeled on the great European academies. Many of its teachers had studied in France and guided their students through a traditional progression, beginning with drawing from antique casts, then advancing to life and still life classes, and finally to landscape painting. The school, initially housed in the same building as the Bohemian Club on Pine Street, moved in 1893 to a grand Nob Hill mansion donated by the widow of railroad magnate Mark Hopkins. With this move, it became known as the Mark Hopkins Institute of Art, a symbol of San Francisco's rising cultural ambitions. Yet Emily's own experience was mixed. She found the rigid copying exercises stifling, the endless drills dull and uninspiring. Only in her landscape classes under Raymond Yelland and Lorenzo Latimer did she feel truly alive. Outdoor sketching was a fluid process, half looking, half dreaming, awaiting invitation from the spirit of a subject. Atmosphere, space cannot be touched. These things asked to be felt not with fingertips, but with one's whole self, she later recalled. Absorbed in her academic studies, Carr remained unaware of the rich cultural life blossoming around her in San Francisco. Its most prominent artists exhibited at the Bohemian Club, the Gumps Gallery, and the Vickery, Atkins, and Torrey Gallery, while the founding of the San Francisco Art Association in 1871 signaled a rapidly expanding art scene. By late 1893, dwindling family finances forced her to return home to Victoria. Undeterred, Emily converted the family's cow barn into a small studio and began teaching art classes to children while continuing her own drawing and painting. She sketched and painted in Beacon Hill Park, the Inner Harbor, and other nearby sites she knew so well. In 1894, she submitted several pen and ink drawings to the Victoria Fall Fair. The following year, she won first prize over Victoria's established artists. The Daily Colonist praised her work. "A nicer little bit of work it would be hard to find. Miss Carr's sketching is beautifully done, and the little collection of hers is well worth seeing." In 1898, seeking new inspiration, she traveled to Ucluelet on Vancouver Island to join her sister Lizzie at a Presbyterian mission. There, she threw herself into capturing the villages, houses, people, and the surrounding scenery with passion and sensitivity. In her autobiography, Growing Pains, she recalled, "I loved every bit of it. No boundaries, no beginning, no end. Edge of land meeting, edge of water, with just a ribbon of sand. Trouble was only the edges. Both sea and forest in their depths were calm and still. I drew boats and houses. Unknowingly, I was storing, all unconscious, my working ideas against the time when I should be ready to use this material." In 1899, at the age of 28, Emily Carr invested her savings to study at the Westminster School of Art in London. By that time, however, the once prestigious institution had declined, offering little more than the conventional training Emily had already experienced in San Francisco. Unfulfilled, Carr sought a more dynamic and engaging artistic environment. Her search led her to the art colony in St. Ives, Cornwall, where she studied under Julius Olson, a maritime painter, and Algernon Talmadge, an impressionist. St. Ives offered exactly what she craved: a rich variety of landscapes, seascapes, and subjects that allowed her to explore the natural world directly. She also took lessons from John William Whiteley, a landscape painter who encouraged her to observe and capture the subtle rhythms of nature. Reflecting on her teachers, Carr recalled the unique guidance she had drawn from each of them. "I remember with affection and gratitude something special that every master taught me." Mr. Whiteley's pet phrase was, "The coming and going of foliage is more than just flat pattern." Mr. Talmadge had said, "Remember, there is sunshine too in the shadows." These lessons, though technical, were deeply formative. They shaped not only her skills, but her way of seeing the world, heightening her sensitivity to light, color, and atmosphere. Despite this, the traditional English instruction could not satisfy her inner vision. Her heart remained rooted in the forests, mountains, and coastlines of Western Canada, their beauty woven inseparably into the rhythm of her daily life. Driven by a desire to express the landscapes and life around her more authentically, Emily Carr took another major step in 1910, returning to Paris nearly a decade after her first visit in 1901. During that earlier trip, she had written to a friend about her daily pilgrimages to the Louvre, marveling at masterpieces she had previously only imagined. Paris in 1910 pulsed with artistic innovation. Cubism and Fauvism were challenging traditional perspectives, led by artists such as Pablo Picasso, Henri Matisse, and Georges Braque. Paris talked of, Carr wrote, It claimed bigger, broader seeing. Everyone said Paris was the top of art, and I wanted to get the best teaching I knew. Emily Carr spent almost 2 years studying at l'Académie Colarossi, training under John Duncan Ferguson, a leading Scottish colorist. She took classes from William Phelan Gibb, who moved in the same avant-garde circles as the Fauves. She also studied with the brilliant New Zealand watercolorist Frances Hodgkins. During this period, Carr's work began to reflect the bold colors, broad brushwork, and post-impressionist techniques of the European modernists. Her paintings, Le Paysage and La Colline, were accepted into the 1911 Salon d'Automne, where they hung alongside works by her teacher Ferguson, her Canadian contemporary James Wilson Morris, and influential artists such as Pierre Bonnard, Henri Matisse, and Édouard Vuillard. Yet even amidst the excitement of European modernism, Carr's heart remained devoted to the landscapes of Canada. The vivid colors and sweeping grandeur of her homeland's scenery, together with the enigmatic beauty of First Nations art, kept calling to her, shaping the evolution of her distinctive, vibrant style. This unique blend of European techniques and her Canadian sensibilities nurtured the growth of Emily Carr's singular artistic vision. Her deep admiration for the preserved culture of Indigenous peoples, first awakened during her initial explorations of southern British Columbia, ignited a passionate drive to capture the beauty and spirit of their heritage on canvas. Upon her return to Canada in the spring of 1912, Carr immersed herself fully in the history and culture of her homeland. She traveled to remote coastal villages, drawn to the intricate totem poles, carved masks, and traditional houses of First Nations communities. Recording the poles posed a significant challenge. Their immense height defied capture from a single vantage point, and shifting position threatened to distort their true proportions. On occasion, Carr even reconstructed elements from their remnants, painstakingly restoring the memory of the past. She navigated the British Columbia coast by any means available, steamers, canoes, or long walks, armed with her painting supplies, a portable easel, blankets, and provisions to sustain her through the journey. Over the summer of 1912 alone, she visited more than 15 Indigenous villages, sketching and painting tirelessly. Through these experiences, Carr's artistic style began to evolve, absorbing the rhythm, spirituality, and visual language of Indigenous art, while synthesizing it with the lessons she had learned in Europe. In 1913, Carr organized a solo exhibition at Dominion Hall in Vancouver at her own expense, presenting nearly 200 works, including sketches, watercolors, and oils. The week-long show was accompanied by 2 lectures, in which she explained her artistic mission. Still, the response was mixed, and the Provincial Museum showed little interest in her work. Profoundly discouraged and feeling professionally isolated, Carr returned to Victoria and painted very little for more than a decade. In reality, she continued to produce a few paintings in the style she had learned in France and exhibited occasionally in Victoria and Seattle, though her usual creative energy seemed diminished. To support herself, Carr ran a boarding house on Simcoe Street known as the House of All Sorts, but proceeds from this venture were insufficient. "I tried in every way to augment my income," she recalled. Small fruit, hens, rabbits, dogs, pottery. Although she maintained connections with artists in Seattle, Carr felt that her artistic career had stalled and her aspirations remained unfulfilled. By 1927, Emily Carr was already in her 50s when she received an invitation from the National Gallery of Canada to participate in the Native and Modern exhibition, which showcased Canadian West Coast art alongside the works of the Group of Seven. After opening in Ottawa, the exhibition would make its way to Toronto and Montreal, offering Carr an extraordinary opportunity to present her work on a national stage. Seizing the moment, she exhibited a substantial collection, including 26 paintings, several hooked rugs, and pieces of decorated pottery. Carr was also commissioned to design the exhibition catalog cover, featuring a striking totem-like bird of her own design. This pivotal event ended Emily Carr's years of professional solitude, finally bringing her the recognition and camaraderie she had long deserved. It marked a turning point in her artistic development. The exhibition also provided Carr with the chance to visit the studios of the Group of Seven. She greatly enjoyed the canvases of John MacDonald. She found a sense of rhythm and poetry in the paintings of Alexander Young Jackson and admired the sweep of the lines, stronger colors, and simpler forms in Arthur Lismer's work. She also noted how distinctly Canadian Frederick Varley's sketches were a new delineation of a great country. Yet it was Lawren Harris's art that resonated most profoundly with her. In his work, she discovered something that spoke to the very soul of her being. Harris, recognizing the extraordinary power of Emily Carr's talent, told her, "You are one of us." In the years that followed, he maintained a vibrant and intense correspondence with Carr, offering invaluable encouragement and helping her navigate periods of self-doubt and discouragement. "His letters were a constant source of inspiration to me," she wrote. Their friendship endured until the end of her life, with Harris ultimately serving as the artistic executor of her estate. Emily Carr's deepening connection to Canada's scenery was inseparable from her growing understanding of the spiritual bond Indigenous communities share with nature, a bond vividly expressed through their art, totems, and traditions. This insight gradually infused her work with a singular sensibility, evident in the 4 iconic paintings that capture a harmonious fusion of admiration, reverence, and intuition. In her mature works, nature is portrayed as a living, ceaselessly moving force, brimming with vigorous energy. Against this immense and untamed backdrop, all human-made structures appear fleeting and perilous, emphasizing the overwhelming power and presence of the natural world. This contrast is strikingly evident in her painting Church at Uquat Village, formerly Indian Church, where the grandeur and motion of the surrounding forest seem to dwarf the small white church nestled among the trees. The painting captures the transient and fragile nature of human presence against the eternal rhythm of the wilderness, highlighting Carr's ability to convey both the majesty of the land and the spiritual resonance she perceived within it. In 1930, Church at Uquat Village was exhibited in the 5th Annual Exhibition of Canadian Art, organized by the National Gallery of Canada. 8 years later, in 1938, the painting was selected for a Century of Canadian Art event at the Tate Gallery in London, marking its recognition on an international stage. Much like Tom Thomson, Emily Carr held a deep and abiding affection for trees, a sentiment she captured in her diaries, later published, where she wrote that trees were far wiser than people and that her love for them was profound. "The woods are marvelous after the sun has dipped and quit tickling them," she wrote in her diaries, later published under the title Hundreds and Thousands. Then they get back to sober realities, the cake without the icing. They are themselves then, like people alone and thinking instead of persons in a throng trying to sparkle and taking in reflections from others. Dear trees, we don't stop half enough to love and admire them. Her paintings bring forests to life, portraying them as vibrant, sentient entities imbued with energy and presence that seem almost beyond human comprehension. Carr continued to participate in exhibitions alongside the Group of Seven in 1930 and 1931. As noted earlier, her work was also showcased at the Tate Gallery in London in 1938. The same year, she held a solo exhibition of 28 paintings at the Vancouver Art Gallery. And in 1939, her works were presented at the New York World's Fair. These events broadened Emily Carr's professional network, fostering numerous new connections and friendships, and firmly establishing her place in the Canadian and international art world. In the final decade of her life, Carr became increasingly troubled by the effects of industrialization on Canada's natural landscapes and on the lives of Indigenous communities. These concerns are poignantly reflected in her painting, Odds and Ends, which captures the tension between human encroachment and the enduring presence of the wilderness. As her health declined and she could no longer paint, Carr discovered a new creative outlet, writing. In 1941, her first book, Klee Wyck, a collection of short stories inspired by her experiences in southern British Columbia, was published. The title, meaning Laughing One, was given to her over 40 years earlier by the Nuu-chah-nulth people, reflecting her lasting connection to the cultures and landscapes she loved. The publication was overseen by Ira Dilworth, a regional director for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, who became both her literary mentor and a close confidant. After Carr's death, he continued to publish her writings, serving as the executor of her literary estate. Klee Wyck received critical acclaim and earned the Governor General's Literary Award, establishing Carr's national recognition, ironically, first as a writer rather than as the painter she had long been celebrated for. Further writings followed. In 1942, The Book of Small was published, and 2 years later, The House of All Sorts appeared. More works were released posthumously, ensuring that her voice continued to reach readers beyond her lifetime. Shortly before her death, Carr learned that the University of British Columbia had decided to award her an honorary Doctor of Letters degree, a recognition of her remarkable contributions to Canadian culture. Carr's literary achievements were integral to her artistic reputation. Her dual accomplishments as both painter and writer cemented her status as one of Canada's most prominent and influential cultural figures. Emily Carr passed away on March 2, 1945, in Victoria, yet her legacy continues to inspire through the enduring power of her paintings. Her works are widely displayed in major art galleries across Canada, consistently drawing large audiences. In 2012, 7 of Carr's paintings were included in the prestigious international exhibition Documenta 13 in Kassel, Germany, underscoring her significance on the global art stage. Her memory is further honored through a variety of tributes, including a northern British Columbia inlet and even a crater on Venus bearing her name. Her hometown of Victoria commemorates its celebrated artist with a bronze monument, Our Emily, crafted by sculptor Barbara Patterson. The statue portrays Carr gazing over the inner harbor she so often sketched, with her drawing pad in hand, her Javanese monkey Wu perched on her shoulder, and her loyal dog, Billy, at her side. Lawren Harris wrote, "Her life was a creative, ongoing. Throughout her days, her work kept changing and developing. For the creative artist, there is no finality. No one has said the last word on Emily Carr, and no one ever will."